more dreamy feel to some aspects of it. We want a lot of fire. How can we enhance flame lighting and flickering lights and things like that? We put tech to make the art look better. How can we evolve our characters? What can we do to make them look better, make the skins higher resolution, make the shaders better, things like that, that just add to a more robust and immersive experience for the player.
So sort of being in charge of the art direction, I feel like it would be difficult because an artist, I'm sure you want to be hands-on with stuff because you know what you have up here, but how hard is it to pass that on to?
Yeah, it's really hard.
Like,
yeah, it's super hard. I'm not only, you know, am I high-level art direction now, but it's I'm a control freak to a certain extent, right? I like what I like, and it's frustrating sometimes for the guys, and sometimes I don't know what I want, right? I mean, an art director doesn't necessarily have all the answers. So sometimes, you know, I get a bad rap, I'm sure, and people are like, "What are you doing? You don't know what you're doing," and stuff. But it just takes a while to try and you know, craft that stuff and mold it into something, make something from nothing, basically. You've
been here since the beginning of the franchise, so you were the big influence in what these characters, these larger-than-life characters would be. Where did you get that from?
That was you know, space barbarians, right? It was, you know, the hardcore kind of Conan and things like that. I was really into that stuff, and it just kind of happened. We were like, hey, let's get these huge dudes and these big creatures, but we'll give them guns instead of swords, and we'll see what happens, you know. And it worked out well. Are there specific design principles that you hand down to them? Like, look, the characters, the weapons, everything has to fall within these design principles? You know, we set up style guides. The overall description was the world is heavy. Gears is a heavy and brutal game. So everything we put on the characters was meant to convey that weight in the world. We had shoulder pads that flopped around. When they hit cover, they grunt and they slam into it and dust flies out. Stuff like that.
Because it's the emotion of those guys. How hard is it to get the emotion across?
That's really hard. You know, an inanimate character, to get that emotion. In some aspects we did it well, some we didn't. And it all comes down to lighting and mood and facial animation and things like that. We're getting better at it.
You know, in the campaign, Loomis is yelling at Start, get him ice cream.
For the entire epics, for the entire Gears of War series, wow, that man has really got his fingerprints all over it. What's it like to work with him?
Yeah, he really does have his fingerprints and his influence on the whole series. I was watching the Twitter feed at the bottom of the monitor there as it was going on, and someone said, you know, he's one of the best in the business, and in my opinion, he is the best in the business. I mean, he just.
But we get to see all of them anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of like.
You know, it's really good. That's what I figured. And his entire team, and kind of, you know, he sets the bar high and is infectious, and so it's really been a pleasure to work with him. But we also have to call out, you know, PCF. We're going to this new, you know, we've gone back before Gears of War 1, where everything is freshly destroyed and still on fire. So it's a really evolutionary visual ID for the franchise, and so it's, you know, Perna certainly has been instrumental in that, and PCF in collaboration as well. So it's been a
lot going on there. You mentioned Twitter. What do you say we go to Twitter now? We're going to turn the show over to you, the community. We've been firing off questions for both on the Gears Judgment hashtag. If you have a question, you just need to use that hashtag. Why don't we bring up the first question right now? We'll get right to it. So with the success of the franchise, did you find it difficult creating a story or a prequel that could hold its own? From 00 Sleven. Guys?
I saw this come up while we were in the green room waiting for the show. You know, it really freed us to be able to go do a prequel. So, you know, I wouldn't say it was constraining or tough or difficult. We were really free to kind of go off and really try a lot of new things, and I think that's why Judgment does feel so fresh and does feel so new. We didn't hold ourselves in a box.
Right.
That maybe, you know, may have been the case with the original trilogy.
Great. Let's go on to question number 2. Let's bring that up right now on the screen. And we've got any new type of weapons. I mean, come on. That's what every Gears fan wants to know.
Yeah, absolutely. As you'd expect with any Gears of War product, lots of new characters, lots of new enemies, and lots of new weapons as well. So we have, you know, we have a couple of accuracy-based weapons, some of which the Locusts have commandeered and modified to be their own. We have former UIR weapons, like the Bushka, which fires grenades, and we have a new stim gas and spotting grenades as well. So lots new to be had in the weapons department.
A lot of different stuff going on there. All right, next question. Let's bring that up on Twitter. Make sure you use the hashtag Gears Judgment. Is there any new multiplayer modes for Gears Judgment?
Yeah.
Who picked these fucking questions?
Overrun mode is the most exciting new mode that we've added. It's a 5-on-5 attack defend class-based multiplayer mode. Just super fun, way exciting. We just talked about domination. That's brand new. Free for all mode, another brand new mode that we brought into Gears. You know, it's just sort of deathmatch, everyone on their own. So
they brought me a mode with the Gears.
We'll take them later on in the show, but right now let's turn it back over under the Gears Judgment hashtag. This question is, let's go ahead and bring that up here. Live TV, you never know what's going to happen.
It's coming. I can feel it.
All right, here it is. Why did you choose to have loadout systems for multiplayer? Great question.
It is a good question.
Yeah, I think it's all about flexibility. I mean, giving players. This is another big. You know, one of the recurring themes of this project is cramming as much in as we could that the community desired. And this is certainly one of the things that immediately fell out of that we prototyped in early pre-production and knew was compelling is, you know, this wider variety of choices by offering a loadout system.
Great. Well, there you go. Thanks everyone for your questions. Keep them coming using the hashtag GearsJudgment on Twitter. We'll ask more community questions, your questions, later on in the show. Now, but for now, the live audience has selected, let's take a look at Dynamic Defense to showcase us next. And following that will be our final world premiere unveil of survival mode. So let's bring up Dynamic Defense right here in the studio for the folks at home. What are we seeing here? Here's the gameplay. Why don't you guys describe what we're taking a look at?
Yeah, so one of the big fan favorites from previous Gears of War titles was this idea of a defense scenario. And so what we've done is no longer, you know, yes, part of the campaign you're charging through and conquering, but part of the campaign also, the Locusts are banging on the doors and they're encroaching upon you, and it's up for you to defend yourself. So we've added, as you can see, they're placing these new gameplay mechanic, which is a placeable sentry, and we have a couple of different types of sentries that have different ammunition types. And so it's up to you to defend your position within the map, and as the Locusts are coming upon you, to actually place the sentry, repair it, feed it as you need to, and ultimately survive so that you can continue.
You're gonna end up having to defend against multiple waves of locusts. They're gonna kind of attack you in these waves, and you're gonna get a little break. You're gonna have time to kind of reset your defenses, think about your strategy in between those different waves, which really adds a nice element of strategy to it.
So this is kind of a tower defense type thing in the campaign where you stop down and kind of have to defend this. One thing I noticed here is that, you know, as a player, you can pretty much set down the turrets anyway.
Come on.
How does that affect the spawning system?
Come on, you dumb white dog.
Yeah, that plays really well into our new dynamic spawn system, where if you push the sentries forward, you know, the spawn system, it might react to you and spawn different types of enemies and flank you. And if you stay back and try to hunker down, they might come at you with a full frontal assault. So lots of variation and lots of strategy to be had with this new gameplay mechanic.
I want to talk a little bit about the turrets that we're seeing us lay down here. What are the different types of turrets we have?
Well, first of all, you'll notice you have to manage them. They run out of ammo.
Yeah,
so you need to go up and reload them. Yeah, you have to defend them because the Locust will try to destroy them. But you have a couple of different types. So you have a Nasher type, which is a shotgun type of a sentry, so it's going to blast a little bit of a wider radius. And then you have the assault rifle sentry, which has a longer range. It'll give a good string of bullets on those enemies, but it'll run out of ammo a little bit quicker as well.
There you go. That's dynamic defense. All right, now we get to the answer of the most asked answer and question for the Gears of War Judgment, and I got to ask this: what did you guys do to my horde mode? What the hell happened? Survival is the answer, and we're gonna have to take a look at this right now.
A bit longer than I anticipated.
Gears has always been a cooperative game at its core. I mean, even our campaign was designed around cooperative play.
The number one question I get is horde mode coming back? I get that every single day on Twitter, so I couldn't wait to actually talk about survival. The base goal of it is you are defending a series of objectives, playing as the cog, and you get to use the classes that we have in Overrun. So you have the engineer, you have the soldier, you have the scout, you have the medic. It's all about teamwork of what classes you're going to pick and use their special abilities to help survive 10 waves of enemies.
You messed with one, you stupid dog. I'm gonna kick you.
It shares the same kind of like gameplay mechanics as Overrun. And so there's 3 objectives, a primary, a secondary, and the third one being the generator, right, or the main objective. The battlefield is single directional, so you start defending the first one, and then when that falls, you fall back to the second one, and when that falls, you fall back to the final generator.
In Horde, we had 50
good Horde. This is kind of weird.
You might hear 10 waves and go, wow, that's short. It is 10 crazy intense waves, and it's actually really hard to survive those 10 waves.
We actually had to bring in QA to ensure that we weren't going to shoot a multiplayer game mode that it was impossible to beat on the highest difficulty level. Going all the way to hardcore or insane is definitely going to be a challenge for any co-op group who wants to try to tackle it.
Left the party.
think the key abilities that you're going to see, if they're used well, give you a big, big advantage.
If you have an engineer who's repairing a fence and the locust forces are incoming, there's no way he's going to be able to repair that fence. And so you've got this moment where all of the classes are doing their thing, and it's all to protect the one engineer who is staying alive and not slowing down and not reloading and doing all this to save that one barrier that's protecting your objective.
It's different every time. You know, it's going to be different every single time using the smart spawn system. As you're changing and trying to figure out the best way to beat it, the game is changing on you, and so you're constantly having to adapt and figure out, oh man, we thought this was going to work, but now it's different because, you know, we're facing different enemies. How are we gonna team up and actually beat it this time?
There's a lot of just little ways that they can work together and complement each other that make that so much more valuable than, hey, everybody just runs in with their Lancer and shoots stuff. The 10 waves, the 3 objectives, all kind of worked out to that magic sweet spot where the intensity level was just right, the length of experience was just right, the number of people involved was just right, and it just turns into this great experience.
Survival mode, that looked great. I got to talk to you about this, though. There's class space going on here. Tell us about that.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that makes it so interesting and so compelling is that you do have this class-based system. And so it really becomes about how are we going to team up? So how are you going to spread those classes around the team and really work together to use those unique abilities that each class has in order to try to survive those 10 waves that the locusts are launching at you. And that really is where the mode really gets interesting. You know, it kind of borrows that stuff from Overrun. It just adds that deep strategy, you know, that Gears hasn't had before. And by introducing those classes, we've introduced a lot of strategy in there as well.
Tell me about some of your favorite memories as you guys were playtesting this.
Oh, lots of good memories, especially when you're playtesting against QA, because those guys are ridiculous. But you know, testing different strategies, I think, are some of the most, you know, the fondest memories we have of, hey, let's load up on engineers and let's see what we can do to just keep the fortifications repaired and maybe have a medic or two to heal us, or hey, let's go in with the heavy guys and, you know, left and right, center. You know, it's all about how you're combining your classes and how you're defending the different routes, and there's lots of great memories surrounding that.
Now, Chris, we're watching the Twitter feed here in the studio on the Gears Judgment hashtag. There's been some questions about taking the Horde mode of 50 and then dropping it down to 10 for survival mode. Tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. You know, so Horde was really about a marathon.
Right.
And one of the big themes for us in Judgment is around intensity, around making your palms sweat, about making your knuckles turn white because you're squeezing that controller. And so when we really focused in on survival, we really wanted to bring that intensity into the mode as well. And so you get, you know, it might last about an hour, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on how well you do, but it is a crazy hour. I mean, you're just constantly, you really are squeezing that controller. You know, are we gonna make it, are we gonna make it? There's two guys left, we're almost done. And just that intensity, that sort of, you know, what you kind of get nervous in your belly, right? That kind of butterflies in your stomach that don't happen in a lot of other modes. And that's something we really wanted to bring, and I think that's why you see, you know, the mode tuned the way it was, because that's what we were going after.
Let's get back to the questions on Twitter using the Gears Judgment hashtag. We've seen survival. Now we're going to go to the questions. Let's bring up the first question right here in the studio. Will there be a season pass? It's always a great value. Can't wait to see kill some locust scum. Look forward to it, guys. You kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, but why don't you go ahead and revisit it?
Kill the locust scum. I like it. Destroy them. Yeah, so our DLC plans will have 6 maps that we talked about that we'll release, plus 2 new modes. The season pass gives you a discount on that. You know, I don't know the exact points here off the top of my head. But then you also get all that extra stuff that we talked about. You get early access to all the content before anyone else gets it. You get the double XP.
Double XP.
And you know, playing the VIP playlist all the time, which is awesome. Yep. And then you get the skins and the characters that no one else is going to get as well. So our season pass, you know, we really tried to take it to the next level. We really tried to up that value to our fans and try to give them a lot of what they wanted.
All right, back to Twitter using the hashtag Gears Judgment. Next question up: will the mature filters, gore, and language be returning? It was a great option to have in Gears.
Yeah, they're all in there. Yep, so absolutely they'll be back for you.
So that's people who don't really prefer the blood, they can kind of dial it back a little bit.
Exactly.
And actually, you know, I kind of use that in...
Well, you know, if I could play Gears for my kids, because I don't want to hear them saying, hear Marcus saying, fuck you.
Twitter, Gears Judgment, there you go. Is there a good game for new players to join the Gears of War universe? Or do you recommend playing the previous games? Because there's a lot of games. You've got this is now the 4th game. So tell us where you should we start at the beginning, or tell us about that?
This is a great place to start. So you don't have to worry about, you know, in Gears 1, 2, and 3, like starting in Gears 2, you don't know what happened. You don't have that. This is a standalone story. You don't need the background of what happened in the original trilogy. And then we have all this additional stuff. You know, we talked about Aftermath, which actually takes place during Gears of War 3. It's a slice of what the Gears 3 campaign was like. So